From Los Angeles to a worldwide audience, this is Boaz Power TV, where we take your life to the next level. Now, internationally known speaker and author, here's Boaz.
Hi, welcome to the Power Show. You are part of the Power Nation, and I'm so delighted that you're here. In my seminars all over the world, I teach people concerning attitude, how to have a great attitude every day, whether you feel like it or not. First thing in the morning when you wake up, just say, it's showtime. It's showtime. And pretend you're feeling great, whether you're feeling good or not. And before you know it, you will. And when people ask you, how's business, how's life, how's everything? One word with enthusiasm, unbelievable. Nobody will know what you're up to, but they'll think you're doing great. And when they do a follow-up, say, no, wait a minute, Boaz, is it really going that good? Here's a follow-up line. All I can say is, it's unbelievable. How's everything with you? It really sets the premise for people spreading good rumors about you. This is episode number 73, Boaz Power TV, and I call this one, He Had Courage in the Night. You know, in our daily struggles, sometimes things seem overwhelming. Maybe we should turn to the experience of other people who might have had situations that were even rougher and see how they handled them. So this is a story about a good friend of mine, a very special gentleman named Jim Brady. He lives in Florida now, but lived in San Diego for many years. He tells the following story of courage in the night, and I'll quote him in this note that he sent me. In June of 1962, I was a young lieutenant in the Navy and beginning fighter pilot. I had just received my wings and was learning to fly my fleet fighter, the Chance Vought F8 Crusader. Now, this aircraft was capable of Mach 1.9, almost twice the speed of sound. Wow. However, because the aircraft had such high performance, it was inherently unstable and very difficult to fly in slow flight, the kind used in landing on an aircraft carrier. Also, at that time, the U.S. Navy was still using many of the World War II carriers that were originally designed for smaller and slower prop-driven aircraft. Bringing the F-8, Jim says, aboard the USS Shangri-La was a challenge under ideal daytime conditions. Well, it was a time to carrier qualify in his F-8, and Jim did well during the day and made his 6 required landings. Until that point, he had never made a night landing. It was time for him to night qualify, and the challenge was very intimidating. So he writes, you can't imagine how dark it can be at sea during a moonless night. Total darkness and no horizon for reference. You only have some small runway lights and the meatball, as we called it, for reference. The meatball is a light that projects a glide slope from the back of the ship. It is this glide slope that brings a Navy fighter safely aboard. I didn't know this. This was fascinating to learn. The rest is total blackness. All you have is this light leading to the glide path. You're flying an aircraft that weighs 26,000 pounds, landing at about 150 miles an hour. If you make a perfect approach, you will have 9.5 feet between your tailhook and the back of the ship. Many naval pilots have lost their lives slamming into the back of a carrier. So he said, as I got into the aircraft to start my engine, I realized how completely black the night was. I could only see the lighted wands of the flight deck personnel that would guide me to the catapult. After going through my pre-flight checks, I was signaled to begin taxiing. I felt my nose wheel run up over the shuttle of the catapult, the track that would literally shoot my plane into the blackened sky. The catapult officer signaled me to bring my engine to full power for the launch. My feet shook as I released the brakes and felt the steel hold-back bar take the strain of the aircraft at full power. The catapult fired, the bar broke, and my aircraft traveled 250 feet, going from 0 to 165 knots in about 2.5 seconds. It was an awesome ride. Well, there I was in the air and doing just fine. There was complete blackness outside. No way to tell exactly where the ship was except for a small red light on the mast. The wind was pretty strong that night, and we had about 35 knots over the deck. This could be a problem because anything over 30 knots can make the effect of the wind on the deck even more pronounced. It creates a downdraft right behind the ship. The wind bounces off the water and creates an updraft about half a mile behind the ship. Now this is very dangerous, Jim wrote, because it leads a pilot to reduce power and come in high on the visual glide slope. As he passes through the downdraft close to the carrier, that can slam him into the back of the ship, and it happened frequently. I began my approach for the first landing, Jim says. The light beam from the ship indicated that I was a little high in relation to the glide slope. My speed at 132 knots was just right, so I wouldn't break the wire. Because of the way the runway lights were artificially towed in to the flight deck, I began to experience vertigo. The 300-foot landing area looked longer than it was. This landing required great discipline. If I believed what my brain was telling me, he says, instead of what the instruments in the ship's light beam were telling me, I could make a serious mistake and kill myself in a fireball on the back of the ship. It was the first time I was truly scared in an aircraft. So Jim continues, I was not one at all sure I could do this, and I had to do it 5 times to qualify. I wanted to be a naval fighter pilot more than anything I had ever thought about. I told myself, Jim, you are going to do this. You have what it takes. Just do it and do it well. What if all of us did that when we were about ready to quit, when something was too difficult? We did exactly what Jim said that night in that aircraft. You are going to do this. You have what it takes. Just do it and do it well. Well, he said, this somehow seemed to calm me a bit, and I focused on the job at hand. As I approached the back of the carrier, the landing signal officer called me to add a little power, which I did immediately, and the next thing I knew, I was thrust against the shoulder straps and the aircraft was coming to a halt. I was elated. I had done it. I did it 4 more times that night and hundreds of more times in my career as a naval pilot. I must honestly say that I was apprehensive every time I made a night landing on the Shangri-La. It was the most demanding thing I've ever done or ever expect to do. You cannot make a mistake in carrier aviation. One mistake and you die. Since that time, whenever things were to get a little out of control or scary, I recall that first night landing on the carrier. Then I say to myself, hey Jim, how bad can this be? You can land fighters on carriers at night. Nothing compares to that, and nothing ever has. And I bet you in your life there are some things you have done that you were scared to do and you got them done. So when we have challenges, why don't we remember back then and just do it? You can do anything you decide. Amazing. So the affirmation for this episode of Boaz Power TV, a leadership affirmation. I have the courage to move through frightening moments. You may want to write this down. I have the courage to move through frightening moments. I'm so glad you joined me. If you like these messages, and many people around the world find them to be very beneficial and helpful, please suggest to 5 people you know to go to my website, boazpower.com, and suggest they subscribe to this free weekly broadcast, and let's help them to also see more of their leadership. You are special, you are unique, you are destined for greatness. I'm so glad you joined me. I believe in you because I see you as a champion. Have a powerful day.
This has been Boaz Power TV. To comment, see other episodes, or to subscribe to this free broadcast, go to our blog at boazpower.com. That's boazpower.com. We're here to take your life to the next level.